knew it.
Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show. I'm Yanila, and I'm joined by Lexa. Say hello, Lex.
Hello, people.
And I still got to adjust your camera. I'll do that during the show. And we have Shy with us as well, our wonderful mod. Say hello, Shy.
Hello.
She will be taking questions towards the end or during the show that we will ask these two wonderful gentlemen that we have with us today. We have Fish Jopper Perkins from Visionary Realms. Say hello.
Hey, everybody.
And we have Justin Istulame Gerhardt. Say hello.
Hey, guys.
So we're here to sit down with these gentlemen and talk a bit about Pantheon. So, Lex, you want to go in there, start it off?
Sure. So, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for VR?
Always have to start with that awkward pause and just let the person asking feel the heat there for just a second. Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I can do that. I started on the project right around 4 years ago. Came on as the music composer and began composing several tracks of music for Pantheon and have done several since that time, and you can find most of them on our SoundCloud. But pretty quickly after I joined, I cut my teeth playing EverQuest. Back, I think I started when I was about 13 years old, and it was the summer before my ninth grade year of high school, and I played a lot that summer, and then ended up continuing to play EverQuest for many years after that, and was just very deeply involved in MMO gaming from that point on. Played every major MMO fairly extensively, some much more than others, all the way up until about 2013 or so. And when I came on the team as a music composer, I also was coming as someone with just a very rich and deep history playing these games, and was kind of jaded because I had just burned out on MMOs. They all were starting to feel very similar, and really didn't have much interest in them. And so as I spent more time on the team writing music, I also started developing a relationship with Brad and some of the other members on the team. And I am the kind of person that tends to meddle and tends to kind of reach my hand in things, and was just very outspoken and very strong spoken about the potential that I saw, and some of the ways I felt like we could really do something really special with this project, and was able to take a look eventually at the HLDD for the game, and was really given an opportunity to sit and take all of that jadedness, if you will, and my love for MMOs, and basically bring to light the differentiators for our game, and find out, do my best to create a design that would truly be a harmony of the classic model, and then an evolution of those things that would make it something really special in the modern market. So as far as what I do, as the creative director, I am very closely. I work very closely with guys like Justin and Tim Convo, and our artists and our programmers. And if you wanted to boil it all down, I would say my role more than anything else is to kind of steward the way Pantheon feels and is experienced by everyone that plays it. And that's kind of a broad thing to say, but there's such a mixture of directorial and hands-on things that I do that I think the simplest way to put it is it's my role and my privilege, and I love taking every single piece and part and ingredient that anyone makes or does related to Pantheon, and kind of working to make sure that all the pieces, when they come together as a whole, are what they need to be and they feel right. And in addition to that, there, the differentiators I mentioned. I was the creator of the perception system. I created the disposition system, created the acclimation process, and kind of worked out how the climate and the acclimation systems would work together. I'm the class designer. I'm the one that sits and decides what the combat and attribute formulas are going to be. And I do a lot of world building. I built the Amber Fate Zone. I built most of Halnir Cave, most of what you've seen in Throw 'Em Fast. All the set dressing for Black Rose Keep, done all the VFX, the visual aspect of the VFX in the game, do the NPC model variations. There's a lot, and that's on top of that is working, like I said, closely with these guys and spending as much time as I can on one-on-one meetings or just email chains, making sure that they have, because as much as I do, they do a lot too. And I think, I've seen mentioned before in many different places that you guys seem to understand that we all wear multiple hats. And Justin's one of those guys that he's been able to come in and take some things off my plate that are really key when it comes to some of the art direction and comes to the way he's able to guide a lot of the artistic work, because Justin's the one conceiving a lot of these things lore-wise and world setting wise. He's able to then from a very natural place guide the artists as well in the creation of those things. So I'll leave it at that, but I think that's a good nutshell.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah,
sounds like a busy guy.
Definitely
busy guy,
very busy guy. So Justin, same to you. Tell us a bit about yourself and what it is you do for VR.
Yeah, thanks. I am on the opposite end when it comes to experience with MMOs. I didn't play AQ. I've actually not really ever played an MMO before. My experience gaming was centered more around single-player games. I played a lot of Star Wars games, whether it was Dark Forces or X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter. That world really caught my attention early on as a kid and kept it through books, through cinema, through toys as a kid, but then obviously through gaming. So that universe has had a really profound effect on me, and the ways that they were able to plug it into so many different formats and achieve success. Just all the way back to, I think Super Nintendo had Star Wars related games. And then 64 certainly did, and it's just carried on through, obviously, to Battlefront and so on. So that's kind of more of my background when it comes to gaming. It's not just Star Wars, but not really in an MMO context. I had a few friends that played EQ when I was younger. In fact, I remember one playing it a ton and always being like, what the heck is he doing? How can he play one game so much? But it all makes sense now. Yeah, that's my background more or less, is as far as gaming goes, is a different slice, which has been really good. It's been the team has been so patient with onboarding me to get the MMO paradigm, because there are a lot of subtle and then very big differences between a single player game and an MMO. Obviously, everybody knows that, but that took a little bit of acclimation on the front end. As for what I do day in, day out on Pantheon, Chris mentioned some of it. I mean, we were joking around the other day, and I said that I do all that you know, or all that you know I've made. And that's, I don't mean to be pretentious about that, because it's not really totally true at all. But pretty much all the content you'll experience in the game will have had some seed in the lore, and will have had some root in the lore, either in a really strong way or in an indirect way. And so everything from the concept behind a zone to the initial layout of a zone. I'll do the initial maps and layouts of the POIs, and then lead the discussions that will help form and shape how that zone actually comes to be. So that's usually, I there's a lot of little areas that I lead the discussion and provide the content or the data for, and then we discuss and hash out what's the best way to do it and what makes the most sense for the player, and what's the best way. Like Chris was saying, it's really where he steps in, and I may lead the meeting, but he is really the shaping voice. And then we have our world designers, our artists. We really try to have a group creative capitals. The way I've thought about it is we have a number of people that influence the idea and try to arrive at the best outcome. But I lead that, whether it's art. We don't really have an art director of any type. We've got artists. And then when it comes to that sort of thing, I will lead the discussion, whether it's a player race or most of the NPCs, and try to get the artists the information they need, whether it's reference material, whether it's lore content, whether it's mood, feel, provide all that information so that they can be as prepared and not encumbered by it, but really prepared to do their work. So there's a lot of areas that's what I do, is whether it's art, whether it's level design, whether it's POIs, whether it's factions, whether it's quests. Obviously, perception system is a huge part of what I do, writing the stories and the quests for that, and helping with feedback on how that system comes to be. Anything right now, at least anything written you experienced in the game, I've written. Anything externally that's published, I've written. So it's like Chris just says, a lot of hats, but it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of support. So it's it's pretty awesome. So
I've got a follow-up question real quick.
Please.
This goes for both of you. I guess you both can answer this one. After listening to your background and everything, you can kind of see, when we see the newsletters and everything, how detailed the lore is, and on the website and everything. Has that been a benefit for VR? You not being so devoted to MMOs in your early days, has that benefited that when it comes to the lore?
I want Chris to answer this too, but what I'll say is the way I've seen it be a benefit, because it's not always a benefit. There is a lot of learning that has to come into place, because
it's mostly a benefit.
Okay. He's very kind. The way that it cannot be a benefit, I'll get that out of the way, is that there can be too much depth and too much detail, because we're not writing a book. We're creating a world that players need to experience. And so I can provide details forever, and that would not be helpful. So a lot of the acclimation and the learning has just been how much information is right and when do we need to shut off the valve. The way I think it has been a benefit is I don't have expectations when it comes to what a normal MMO has. And so that's been a little bit feeling out, like I was just talking about. I think we're starting to figure out where the right amount of content and what's the right amount of depth before we hit some molten core that totally overwhelms everything. Where's that sweet spot, and how do we not pack too much in? But not having preconceived ideas on what the player base would expect, I think just helps us to generally go a little bit deeper and to make more connections. I didn't mention anything about it, but we'll get into the inspiration question down the line. But that's what I would say. I think it's been an overall benefit.
Did Justin just say molten core?
Yes, he did.
Justin doesn't know that reference, so that gives you a taste. But I would say, well, he may know that reference.
I don't think I do. I'm ready for it to come out again.
When I came on the team, Justin came on the team. I think, what was it, like a month, maybe two later? I don't even remember.
Yeah, maybe two. Well, you got brought on and you stealthily didn't tell me for like a month, and then one day you're just like, "Hey, FYI." And there might be a spot for you. So
Justin and I are actually, we live in the same city, and we're very, very, very close friends in real life, and that preceded the project. And when I came on, and as I began to kind of expand past music composer, and I actually was the lore master of Pantheon for like 2 weeks, I think.
Oh yeah, at least 2 weeks.
So basically, you passed on the knowledge.
I passed it all on.
Everything I have is
exchange.
just unpacking those two. Like, none of
I was going to say, what was it? Was it passed on, or was it rewritten?
That's why Justin mentioned that there's no books written. There most probably are hordes of books on his desk with all the law scripture that Joppa's already provided for him.
Oh yeah, with the blood, sweat, and tears
I'm
soaked
just a
into it all.
translator. Oh, I am just a translator.
What really happened was after about 2 weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about Justin as being, because I know him and I know his heart and I know his mind and I know how he works and how talented he is, but because the thing that I love about Justin's lack of MMO experience is that, and I think he was hitting on this, but it doesn't inhibit how deep and how far he goes. And I think the way I see my role mainly when it comes to Justin's work specifically is I intentionally, most of the time, don't lead by giving him any constraints because I want to see where he's going to take things, because I know he's so good at macro and micro conception when it comes to story and who, what, where, when, why, and how amazingly it all fits together, because he is so wired to think in terms of story writing and storytelling, which is where you get your best story, that I like for him to start there and to go where he can. And then from there, we will take it and we'll say, okay, the medium that we're creating here is going to, be able to support this slice or this aspect, and hopefully all of it. And the parts that it doesn't quite, then we'll work that out. But I would much rather have the quality on the front end and the depth, and then work out how it fits than vice versa. Because otherwise, you get, like he said, you get people that have done this a lot, and they kind of only know to draw from the norms that they've experienced, and we don't have to do it that way. So it's great.
Yeah, it gives you an open mind, approach things differently, take a different viewpoint on things.
Yep.
Keeps it fresh.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So, Chris, while you guys were at PAX, what were some of the most asked questions?
Oh, man.
Not that you were writing them down or anything.
No. I think there were a lot of questions that were more generally asked, and I think we all kind of know, from our own experience and being on streams and whatnot, what questions are asked a lot of times. I guess the questions I was most surprised by that were asked a lot were obviously a lot of class-related questions. People are really, really eager to know more. I'm super excited because I am maybe an hour, maybe two away from finishing the third class reveal for the next newsletter, and I'm really, really excited about these. And that, but so a little aside, but that was one category of question that was asked a lot, and really specific questions. And that's kind of the cool thing about things like PAX is when you're there in person, I felt a little more freedom to go a little bit deeper in detail, because person-to-person conversation, they're going to remember the highlights, but it's not going to be something like this that's recorded and people can go back and just scour and listen to again and again to try and make sure they, and that makes me a lot more cautious about what I say and how I say things, because I don't know, it just does. So I was able to say a little bit more about, some of the things, maybe more beans, I guess you could say, than what is typical, but that was really fun. The other thing that was cool is, Pantheon as an open world game, non-instance game, has been without a doubt one of the most consistent talking points. And you talk about like passionate, deep conviction about whether that's going to be good or bad, and how is that actually going to play out in scenario XYZ. And that came up a lot, and which I love, because it is a really strong talking point. It's been a while since a game has done something like this, and we're taking a pretty big risk in some sense by not, doing the instance thing. So that was really cool. I think lots of questions about dates. When is this happening? When are you launching? Those are the things that come most immediately to mind.
Nice.
They seem like pretty pretty standard questions. I know a lot of those seem like questions I would be asking if I were there.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, Justin, how does the lore process actually work? I mean, is it kind of like a slow rolling process, or do you like go off a series of eureka moments?
More often than not, it starts with me pinging everybody in the creative channel and saying, "Let's meet right now," and they all hop on, no matter what
All
they're
caps,
doing.
bold.
Oh yeah, and I actually usually get one of my children to type it because I can't be bothered.
Yep.
And then everybody waits. They just sit there until I ring them, and then when I ring them, we all just sit in perfect silence until the eureka moment hits, and then I just talk and hope that somebody's transcribing it, because if they're not, we're gonna miss it. And that is how a game gets made. So, aside from that, it's a lot of things, man. I wrote a little post a long time ago. I don't remember where it is. It was on our website somewhere, but
Zathlis, find it.
lore. What?
Zathlis, find it. I know you're in chat.
I don't remember if it was on the VIP forum. Is why I didn't want to. I think it could be on there. But basically, lore has to be very pragmatic at times, and so there could be a number of things that it has to serve, a number of roles it has to have. So zones work one way, like kind of intra-zone processing works another way, where somebody's like, we really need another small POI here. What could go here? Or, hey, there's this hill. What kind of encampment could go here? We need another NPC type for this faction or this mob group. We didn't have a caster accounted for. We didn't think we would. Now we do. What fits in there? And so, because I'm neurotic enough to assist with those details all the way down to that, and even crafting items, what type of moss there might be in that area. Anywhere there's a need that somebody says, hey, do you have an idea for this? I try to be as accommodating with that as possible. And that happens a lot with artists too. So in those instances, it's got to be spontaneous, but then also connect to the rest of the system. It's got to connect to the rest of the world. And it's not that we don't have things that are just kind of loose, imaginative instances. We do have those things where stuff are not instances. Sorry, I'll backtrack that real quick. We do have these pockets where imagination just kind of happens and it's spontaneous, or somebody else. I mean, it's not just me. If somebody else has an idea for something, I might modify it or shape it a little bit to make sure it agrees with other parts and plays nice holistically. But wherever there's a creative spark, we'll try to use it and plug it in. But it just depends on what the need is. I mean, if we're starting off a zone, then Tolkien said it best. I wisely started with a map, and that's one of the first things Chris actually did was create the map for portions of the world, not the whole world, but the 3 main continents, and where the 9 races we're going to call home. And a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it, he just put names for some things, and those have become zones. And if it was good enough for J.R.R. Tolkien, it's good enough for us. And so some of those places started off like that. And then it's on me to find the ideas, discover the characters, the places, the history, uncover that a lot like an archaeologist. That's kind of how I approach the lore process when it comes to that type of thing. I just keep asking questions like, why is this way? Who would have done this? When would this have happened if we move this event back 100 years or up 100 years? How does that change things today? And try to find the right details to shine the light on, and the right moments to bring to the surface, the right secrets that need to be kept, in the right places and the right people. So it's a lot of asking questions. That is my creative process. It's just continuing to ask of my own stuff. Why are you here? Why do you exist? Where are you going? What have you been doing? Who likes you? Who doesn't? All that stuff. And that by itself helps answer the big questions. And then we've done enough work that there's a larger context for almost everything that we can plug in where it makes sense. And so, but then there are the eureka moments that are just, oh my goodness, this now this works so much better. or now this has a reason that is going to even have a longer delay in the revelation, but it feels so much better, flows so much better. So it's a lot of questioning. It's a lot of it's a good mix too, because I love it when somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, what about this?" Because it causes me to get off of whatever rump I'm on or whatever hill I'm on, and kind of dig in another hole and search out another area. So it's a bunch of different ways of accomplishing just the best means to get the right people what they need, and then fill in the gaps where there's gaps. So
nice. So Chris, how has the initial response been since PAX?
So, well, I could answer that pretty briefly and say, in one sense, I don't know because I don't come up for air all that often to see. What I have seen and have heard has been, I mean, just across the board, positive, very, very positive. I think the class interview was significant because, for one, I mean, obviously it's been so long, it's been such a long time coming, and people are really eager. But I think it's also been one of the most meaty, direct kind of expose of information that we've given in a while. And I know there's a lot of interest in seeing more things like that, which I agree and I would love to do. So there's been some good feedback in the area of like, here's how we want you guys to talk to us, kind of thing. And we want to listen. But as far as the game goes, I mean, yeah, the feedback at PAX and since then has been awesome. And the streams that we've done, you know, some were maybe received better than others, but I think on the whole, I think the game is, I guess the biggest takeaway we had coming away from PAX was the game is really starting to speak for itself for the people who play it. It's not so much us standing behind the shoulder and saying, I know it's like this now, but there's all this stuff's coming. Like it's going to be like this. It's going to be like this. Now it's really starting to come into what it is in many ways. It's not quite there all the way yet. It's very close in terms of major systems and the differentiators being, you know, layered in appropriately and all that. But it really is starting to speak for itself. And I think, you know, with some of the interviews we did with press, for example, like the Massively interview, I got to sit down with him and play with him. And the thing I loved about that was we didn't talk. I mean, I don't know that we said very many words to each other at all. We just played. And when we did talk, we were talking about what was happening in the game. And Elliot's write-up after that was, to me, you know, ongoing evidence, especially because they've been a group that's been slower to warm up to us for several reasons. That to me was one of the ways that I came away convinced that our game really is it's starting to speak for itself, and I think people at large are seeing that. I certainly think the pre-alpha feedback that we've been having internally has been moving in that direction as well, which of course is the main litmus test for me is the people actually playing the game consistently like that, and why we value our testers so much, because they're not just testing things, but they're giving us that kind of intangible feedback as well. So that, yes, I think it's been extremely positive, and I just cannot wait until the next round of people playing the game.
Cool. So Justin, there are some people out there that say lore isn't at all that important to the core game, but it seems for Pantheon to be the start of everything. Can you explain to us how important lore is for the development and the game itself?
Yeah, I would love to. I think part of the reason it's so important is because people like Chris, people like Daniel Kren, Brad, everybody have made it important. If they didn't value it, if they didn't want to see it form the basis of everything we do, everything that is, then it doesn't have a place. It doesn't matter how passionate our writers are. It doesn't matter how talented they are. It doesn't matter how interested our players are. If people like Chris didn't not just support it, but champion it. And you can tell by the way he talks about it that he really has been the biggest advocate for lore directing the development of our world. If that doesn't happen, then it doesn't matter. And so I know it's story and lore kind of has, like I said, I don't have these expectations just from what other people have said. It seems to have a mixed sort of slot when it comes to MMOs, which is surprising to me because they seem to be the best format of any game type to really be immersive and to really let lore and story dominate. I think that RPGs have a handle on that, and in general they seem to be a lot more story driven. But when it comes to MMOs, it just maybe it's not accurate, but just the feedback that people have been giving us and that I've seen is that we seem to take it a little bit more seriously at the very least than other games have. So I mean, pragmatically for us, like I've said, and I don't want to go over it all again so that I bore people and repeat myself, but it's everything we do from the very start. The names of places, the who's, the what's, the where's, the why's, the layout. Like for instance, we're working on Fairthale right now. I've plotted out every single major POI and a lot of.
That was a bean, by the way, in case you missed it.
Just wait for Froggy and chat to start screaming bean.
Just let me talk, guys. I'll spill all the beans, unfortunately.
Well, you kind of already have early on as well. You mentioned something that we've all assumed for quite some time, but you confirmed it.
Which was?
The three continents, mate.
That was not on accident either. Good. I'm always amazed what everybody picks up to. I shouldn't be, but I'm always amazed. Chris said that in the very beginning. Like, you are going to think you're going to hide things, and you're going to whisper things, and you're going to like say words to yourself, and somebody somewhere is going to hear it, and it's going to be on a website somewhere. I love it, man. I can't say enough about the enthusiasm. It's totally off script here, but the enthusiasm that the lore fans of our community have, the level of thought they have and the level of detail they have is really inspiring and exciting to me. So when we get to that question in a second, that's going to be part of it. But anyway, no, it's everything. So we'll start with nothing but a name, and so in Fairthale, the POIs and all that stuff. Like I'll plot that out, and I am still shocked how much responsibility they give me and let me have, how much authority and sway they let me have. But in our world, I mean, it doesn't have hopefully it doesn't come across when you're playing it that everything is weighed down by pre-planning and reason. Hopefully it feels very natural, and you can experience it and discover it very naturally. But on the backside of things, most 90%, 80%, whatever the ratio is, I mean, it's been put there with a purpose and for a reason. And that's everything. Every name, every faction, every group, every people, mountains, rivers, all of that stuff is really, we've tried to be as careful and considerate as we can be with how it is and why it is. So it's extremely significant. It's extremely significant. So
I just want to say too, just to make something clear here, is that just because, and everything Justin said is right, and so because of that, you shouldn't also think that because there is all of this information and all of this back planning and story and everything has a reason, that the players are going to know that. There's one of the things, to go back to what Justin was saying earlier, we all have our classic nostalgic remembrances from something like EverQuest, and especially those of us who cut our teeth on that game as our first experience of that kind. And some of the conversations Justin and I have had before over the years, and we keep coming back to, is for me, some of the things that stick with me the most from EverQuest were the things that I had no idea what they were or why they were, but they just were so compelling to me because of their strangeness, or the hermit house in South Corona. Like, who is that dude? And why is he there? I don't know. I have no idea. But just the fact that he's there and the fact that I can't know intrigues me and adds some weight and some gravitas and some mystique to the zone that otherwise if everything had a story and then everything told its story, it wouldn't have the same effect. Yeah. So what I love is the way that Justin has done the lore is that everything does have a story, but knowing that when you can't figure it out, that only adds to the mystique because you know that it's there for a reason. And maybe one day we'll reveal it. You want to know, and that's where the perception system interacts with someone. Well, with work like Justin's done so well, and it requires work like that so well because you need like all of those layers and all that depth, and so that you can have things actually surprise the players with and open up to them over time. So, just wanted to add that in there too. I'm really really excited about it.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Yes, it really sounds to me like the lore is more of the foundation the game is built on. It's not necessarily the core of the game. It's just the basis that holds everything up.
Yeah, and I would say it kind of ebbs and flows. I mean, there are times when the lore is always there, and you're right, it is the foundation of the game, and I think Justin said that well, and he's done an incredible job. And then it's up to us or not up to us, but we have the freedom and the opportunity as developers to decide how far forward we push it at what times, knowing that it's always there to be leveraged when we need to and feel like we can or should, or it's really amazing.
Yeah, it's. I'm sure you want to move on to another question, but I'll just say one more thing. Like
Take your time.
Take your time.
It's, I think when it's at its best it is a resource in a lot of applications. Mm-hmm. It's a resource that has a lot of applications. It is not ever telling a designer what to do. It should not ever tell somebody how to make, a good combat mechanic or anything like that. Like, because the lore is not going to tell you what a desirable, enjoyable experience is for a player. It's not going to be able to tell you what's a rewarding experience. It's not going to tell you what's the best way to further develop social interactions between guilds or players or anything like that. It's not. That's not the purpose it serves. It is a resource. It is a foundation, and just what Chris said, it's there to be used. But it doesn't need to be dominant and oppressive. So
you guys have done a fantastic job with that anyway. The observation I've made with the lore, and I think most of us have, is the way the lore has been written. Doesn't matter what it is, if it's for the classes, for the races, for the world itself, or building, or whatever. You've left enough room to broaden out or spice it up later on down the road. You've given us so much, that enough amount of detail that we're intrigued and we want to know more about it.
But enough is left out to where we still have questions.
And where we still have questions, and where you guys can basically branch off into multiple paths. So it's not a part of the story or a part of the lore that has an ending. You've left it open, which is brilliant.
Awesome.
Thanks.
So I'll move on to the next question because, Chris, this one is actually very important to me.
We'll skip it then, right?
Well, we could, but then I'm going to be pretty salty for the rest of the show. But it has been mentioned that in the April newsletter and in previous streams that Black Rose Keep will hold a wide range of levels, like for instance, say levels 8 to 35. Is this kind of the model that we can expect for the majority, or perhaps all of the zones and dungeons?
Yes, I would say definitely so. And then there will be some variation in the degree of that spread, but yes, you can expect to see a good spread. And a place maybe that some people might be wondering, it's one thing for me to say, yes, of course. It's another thing to say, okay, and what we've seen so far, have we seen that consistently? And in Black Rose Keep, it's there. In Hellnir Cave, it's harder to see. And it's harder to see because that zone isn't finished yet. There's more that is going to be opening up in that zone. And some of that is really done through some of our systems that we don't have in place yet. Like, what if there's interactable aspects of the environment where you can break through a wall, or shrink small enough to move through an opening that you can't otherwise, or if one of the classes has the ability to make their group members intangible for a short time and can actually pass through objects, kind of thing. So there's lots of parts of that zone that aren't immediately apparent where the additional content will open up from, but it's there. And I think you will see something much like Black Rose Keep, as far as the spread even in a place like Halnir Cave. And that's not even speaking to the other aspect about that zone that I'm not going to say yet. But that will only further illustrate my point. Justin knows. So yes, absolutely it is. The example I use internally a lot is the Firat from EverQuest, and I don't know if that's how everyone pronounces it, but I mean that zone, it's a starting zone for ogres. You've got all kinds of little low-level critters. You've got lizardmen. You've got the Khazak Thul dungeon, which is level 20 to level 40-ish. You've got Plane of Fear. You've got all kinds of NPCs in there, neutral and otherwise, that are all variations. I mean, there's just such an interesting spread, and I love that. I absolutely love that, and I long for that kind of experience in these games. And so it's not just our dungeons, but Overland as well. You can expect to see that consistently. Yes,
it kind of helps as well keep the younger, older zones, whatever you want to call them, alive as well. When I've reached max level at some point, or I'm in mid-level range, I can still go back to that one zone or to that one dungeon and still experience something new every time I go there. So it helps keep everything fresh and keeps us going back to those places. Yeah, so love it.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's worse than logging into an MMO, going to a zone because you're new and it's just a ghost town.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I seem to get all the questions that are actually rather important to me for some reason. I don't know if it's planned or not, but this is important to me because I'm a bit of a little hobbyist amateur writer. But anyway, Justin, where do you get your inspiration from?
Man, that's a good question.
I saw pancakes in chat.
Yeah, exactly. We saw pancakes. We heard pancakes have something to do with it.
I heard pancakes. Yeah, I mean, that's basically, if you make pancakes, that's the act I do before I ping everybody and ask them to sit around and wait for my call. I just make some pancakes and inspiration hits. Now it's, I went for a long time thinking I didn't know how or what inspiration was, because not to get too abstract, it's just hard to define that sometimes. But now I think what I would say is there's something just satisfying about creating. I believe I'm a creative being, and so being a sub-creator, someone who makes things and makes worlds, whether it's writing, whether it's I'm not an artist, but I'm always sketching and doing little things, little doodles, and as long as I've known about the ability to do any of these things, I've wanted to do it. So part of it's just an inherent desire to make worlds and to write about people and create cultures, and that's always been with me. Before I came on the team, I was working on this is so silly and ridiculous, but 2 separate trilogies of my own fantasy novels. One was a little bit more sci-fi, that I was going to write and work 10 years on and self-publish, which is every writer's dream, of course. And because I just had stuff in me that needed to get out, and so that's part of it. It's just this inherent desire to do that. And I think to anybody, whether it's you or anybody else, I mean, when you have that, the important thing always is just to keep doing it, keep writing, keep at it, never stop. I don't know how many times I've told my wife over the last decade of our marriage, I'm done. I'm done thinking this way. I'm done wanting to do this because it's so hard to get any sort of reciprocation. And then this mercifully drops out of the blue. I mean, I had no reason to be brought on this team or to be expected to do that. So that, when you have that, if you have that, whoever you are, just keep nursing it and keep writing it and keep pushing, because you don't know what'll happen. Other than that, the like material things that really drive me are history. I absolutely love history, world history. I have been fascinated by that since I was, I don't know, 10 or 11, and the first time somebody told me about ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. Mm-hmm. From that point on, I have been marked and always loved the mystery of mythology, the way it affected people, the way it shaped cultures, and the way that over time, just the relationship of one culture to the next, and to see humanity writ large over the span of world history. So there's a lot of inspiration I draw just simply by reading and listening to podcasts. There's a wealth of access points and information out there right now for people who are interested in history. I would assume the best that there's ever been as far as information access goes. And so that by itself really excites me and intrigues me, whether it's the history of the English language or the French Revolution, history of Rome. I mean, there's just so many ways and places that stuff really excites me and inspires me. And then here, like on this project, it's the passion of the team internally and the fan base externally. Knowing that when I conceive of something, it's going to be taken seriously, both by the team, like I've talked about before, whether it's Chris or Daniel or anybody, Tim or artists, anybody trying to realize the story and the ideas in a real way. That's inspiring. I want to do my absolute best so that they have good stuff to work with, and that they want to keep doing what they've been doing. And then externally, the community. I don't like to call them fans because that sounds self-serving, but the community and their investment, time-wise, their investment for a lot of people monetarily. The long-suffering nature of this project, how long it's taken to get where we are. I mean, guys like you who have been doing, how many shows have you guys done? 130? Something like that?
Yeah, roughly about altogether.
Yeah, that's a lot of shows. And I know that we have not always given you content for that. So that's inspiring to me, to be totally honest. That is a huge inspiration to see you guys or anybody else put that much in. That pushes me to continue to do what I do, and know it's going to be appreciated on some level. So I'll shut up now, but that's hopefully that answers the question. Goodness.
Thanks.
Yeah, you did very well.
Just want to quickly interrupt, Lex. There's a question for Chris coming up on your document. It's basically the one on music. That's mine. I'm taking that one. All right.
Okay. I will change that around so I don't accidentally ask it.
Thank you, because that's one I've been passionate about. Anyway, so Chris, during the recent streams, you talked about static and dynamic encounters for the named NPCs. Will we see something similar with the day and night cycle? Will certain quests and NPCs only be available during the day or during the night? Can you speak about that?
Yeah. Again, the answer is yes, and it's one of the things we're working on right now is the day-night cycle. Black Rose Keep is a zone we decided to work on the night lighting and the there's lots of details about what is worked on to make a night and a day scene, and then of course you've got the actual cycle of it transitioning from one to the other. So that's the next step is linking the two and having them transition. But the plan, once that's working, absolutely is for there to be things that you discover at night only, and things that are only out during the day. Whether that's unique NPCs, whether that's townspeople, maybe actually going inside at night. And I mean, some of that is like. I've had the conversation a few times about what level of believability and realism is actually fun. where you can't buy anything from the woodworker because he's off chopping wood for an hour, and you just can't buy anything because and there's that's cool in measure, but so I'm going off on the weeds here, but the simple answer is yes, there will be day-night cycles. There will be not just NPCs that are available during one of those two exclusively, but you could even see their behavior, what they do, their routines or whatnot change during those times. You'll see guards, going around lighting braziers and torches, and you'll see different kinds of activity at night than during the day. And I think that's really important. I mean, that goes back to one of those immersion things that for me is huge.
Definitely.
Absolutely huge. Not only, but that audio too, and just how well we embrace nighttime is really key. So yes.
That's awesome to hear. That's a very important question for me. That's one of the things that have bugged me for the past couple of years now, is that there's no attention towards these kind of things. And these might seem like small things, or they might seem like for a developer, obviously it's a bigger thing. But for most gamers out there, it's a small thing, but it's small things that make that slight difference. That will go a long way.
Absolutely. And they add up, and what they are as they're all added up together is a really big deal, even if the little parts themselves are small.
Definitely. So I guess this question kind of is addressed to both of you, but we'll let Justin take the lead on this, and he's already spoken about this already a little bit at the very beginning of the show. So how involved in the lore will us players be from within the game? Will the lore be more involving to a player?
So I may need a little bit of help on exactly what you mean, but by involving the player. But as far as players being able to encounter and learn about the lore and being involved in that way, I would say that it's obviously a pretty high focus for us. They're going to be able to encounter the lore through, well, the perception system's the way that obviously comes to mind. There's certain parts of the system that will allow you to engage with kind of some hidden histories or hidden stories, learn from NPCs that are not necessarily associated with a storyline or a quest line, so that you can get more information about either an area or a place, and it just really being an opportunity to almost have a conversation with someone in the world. And so you get to learn more about it without having to feel like I have to memorize every detail so that I know what to do next. So there's that side of things, and then there'll just be other ways, again, crafted in with the perception system, that will allow you to get smaller doses of information, and then have kind of your traditional like in-game books or letters or journals, where you'll be able to get that information. Also, if we're doing our job well as environmental storytellers, just paying attention to the world and going, like, kind of taking the cues, like I was talking about with asking questions, you'll be able to learn some things there as well. And so if that's a way that you could see yourself being involved, I would say just exploring is a way to get a lot of involvement in the lore and in the stories, because you're going to learn things just by looking around and asking questions. And not that you have to. You could run through the game and hack and slash and never talk to anybody or look at anything and have an absolutely fantastic time. But I think all of those things together will give people a lot of points of interaction where they'll be able to be involved with the lore from inside the game. That would be very different than obviously just sitting down and reading a novel or something. So
yeah, I was kind of, I'll elaborate on the question a bit then. Now, I was looking at it from a standpoint as, a class or a race as well. Will there, at some point, will the people's classes and the people playing a certain race learn more about themselves through the lore?
CP, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I do. I'll let you finish up though.
Okay. Yeah, in game, I want to strike the class identity and race identity, and people being able to learn about that and feel really a part of. I guess in the lore side of things, it almost feels like the racial side of it would need a little bit more help, because class identity is so strong, and that can be a universal thing, and that kind of spans obviously across races. And so I think just all the thought that we've talked about putting in from the world creation side of things, Chris has put in on the class side of things as well. And so he's got really good logic for what ability leads to the next and what spell leads to the next and all of that stuff. There's a lot of thought behind that, and then how that ties into the overall class identity. And so I think that's really supported, and you interact with your class identity just by playing in the game. So you're automatically going to get a lot of feedback there. There's a good feedback loop on who you are and why you are and how you are. When it comes to races, that's got less opportunity. And so, like I said, we have to be a little bit more intentional with that. And I want to be, again, with Faerthale, like, Ashen and Ember Elves, that's going to be a big part of the storylines that are in there, is learning that history and learning who they are. But inevitably, we don't want to overburden, a storyline in Doku Jaw with, getting a Darkmer in touch with itself. Like that's probably not the best place to do that. So it just kind of depends. But I would say the class identity has a good feedback loop, and then with racial identity, it's probably going to be more localized, more regional, and then have points outside of that where you can interact with it without it being restrictive. I don't want to like have too many quests that really any that only an elf can do ever. Maybe like some initial ones and stuff like that, but that's yet to be determined. So.
Yeah. Okay. So, Chris, a lot of these modern MMOs, they've kind of gotten in the habit of doing telegraphs, indications of where abilities are going to hit. For instance, say we're like with an area of effect attack. Is this something that we might actually see in Pantheon? I hear the thought in the back of his head now. Damn it, Lex!
Pancake moment. Pancake moment. Justin, pancakes.
Share the recipe.
He's so far away.
I know this is actually a pretty touchy question, because some people like them, a lot of people don't like them. So
I have a workaround though. Make it optional.
Well, the problem with that though is that you run into you'll find groups where people say you have to have this enabled.
So here's the reason I'm hesitating is because to answer this question, really it would be helped to share a bit of information about a system that I don't think we've said much about yet. And by said much about, I mean nothing. So I am generally not a fan of telegraphing. I am a fan of being able to know what's happening. And there's a difference. So when there's an AE ability that's damaging you, it's nice to see where the boundaries of that are. It doesn't have to be a solid glowing line. It can be a little bit loose around the edges, and you're not quite sure.
Like a field of fire, almost.
Yeah, exactly.
The fire marks the edge.
There's a difference, though, between that and then before the ability has gone off, you see this blinking circle telling you where it's going to happen, and that I don't like. Now, here's the I don't want to say the exception, because it's not an exception, but it's a different kind of telegraphing, and that is an idea that I've had that I want. We haven't even got around to like trying it yet, but you will see it mentioned soon, and that is the idea that certain enemies have a devastating attack or devastating ability that they can use, and that ability, that attack, whatever it is, be it magical or melee related or whatever it might be, or something in the environment that they throw or whatever, the telegraphing that happens there is more in the animation. It's more in, seeing or hearing some kind of a build-up where and you learn over time that NPCs that have a devastating ability, and what the reason I'm calling it that is because if it hits you, you're in trouble.
Right.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that could one-shot, a caster, or even some of the light melee fighters. Some of these things could one-shot anybody. And so these devastating abilities, I think there's room to have some kind of telegraphing as long as it's organically connected to what you're watching on the screen in what the mob's doing. So we've got some, I'm not going to go into like specific details of how that could look, but that's one way where I think there's a place for telegraphing without blinking lights and
almost a subtle telegraph.
Yeah. You do need to be paying attention. That's the idea, is that,
Right.
If these things are obvious.
From what you said, the kind of picture I have in my mind is, say you were fighting a wizard on a bridge. All of a sudden he raises his staff and says, "You shall not pass. Get away."
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. We've talked. So we've talked about. I will share one example. We've talked about a summoner NPC who is, and I know you guys have no interest in that.
I know someone who does.
Yeah.
But we talked about a summoner NPC and I think it was Convo and I actually that were talking through this together, where what if a summoner NPC is, sending these things in, there's other NPCs there as well, but they're kind of behind the scenes and you just happen to see that they're doing this long kind of incantation, and you see this portal slowly opening and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That would be you discerning this thing's about to let loose a devastating ability, and that's either get out of the way, like now. That's the kind of abilities that the tanks will have to bunker down and do something in response to that and try to save some people that might be getting back there and interrupting that process in any way you can before it finishes. But those kind of moments, I think, are going to be really just really tense and really exciting, and that kind of telegraphing I like, because that's like, you're seeing it before it happens, but it's not like
it's telegraphing that makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't get into a fist fight with someone and all of a sudden there's a big glowing circle in front of your face because that's where he's going to hit you.
Exactly.
But you see him winding up and you're like, okay.
I need a duck.
So I need to quickly address something in chat.
Oh.
Alright, so Fogs, he said summoner NPCs. That does not necessarily mean that the summoner PC will be able to do something like that or have the visual effect.
Yarn.
Oh, she's unmuted now. You're in trouble.
I don't care. He said summoner. I'm happy. Nay, 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 nay. So there. You may now go back. Now you may go back to your regular programming. Thank you so much.
I know I've been gone for a while, but I'm pretty sure that's the first time she's actually been taunted to unmute her mic.
Mm-hmm.
That's because you don't normally want to hear my bird.
Oh god, there's so many places. I'm just having a 12-year-old moment, so I'm not going anywhere near that.
So
I'll hear about it later. I'm
now
sure.
we're entering into the more depth of the lore.
Right.
That's already been revealed to
Now
us.
you give me the question with the hard pronunciations.
So we apologise in chat and to VR if we mispronunciate something. Or...
Oh, I promise you I will.
It's not intentional.
There's no if. Also, if there's little ones, please cover their ears. I'll give you a second. Okay. Justin, what the hell is Avazul? The only time it's been mentioned is at the creation of the Dragon Accord, and I believe it was the world was rechristened from Avazul to Terminus. Is it simply just another name for Terminus? Who called it that? Does it refer to the power of unknown origin?
Oh man, this is so good. Yeah, so Avazul is how you pronounce it, which is pretty much what you said.
I was close. I think I was close, but not right on.
No, it's good. It's okay. Like I said, we don't fret over things like that. Pronounce it how you want. Ava Azul is a name of the planet, and so the world was rechristened from Ava Azul to Terminus, is because at the founding of the Dragon Accord, and I'm gonna put like super hard guardrails on myself after this sentence or two. The planet planet became known as Terminus, and so draw conclusions from that that you will. It is another name. I would say it's not simply another name, but it is another name. I'm not gonna be able to say who called it that, other than the keeper is the one who's narrating that story, and so he's giving that to you. So he's referring to it as that. And then I'm not going to answer the last question either. And that is not me. That's not because the answer is yes, and so I'm not answering it. I'm going to let you wonder about yes or no or anything in between.
Awesome.
Was that one of your questions? Is that one that you've been stewing on?
Not that I've been stewing on, although I have caught myself reading the lore again. And going, wait, is this what it means, or is it something else that I'm missing?
So we have a rank in our guild, if you will. We have a lore master ourselves, and he helped us come up with these questions. And obviously they do interest us as well. But he's kind of our guy to go to when we have ideas or thoughts or want to brainstorm with him. He's kind of the guy to go to. So he came up with these wonderful questions for you.
No, it's a great one, and you have to be perceptive. I've had it come up before, but it's kind of slipped in there, and intentionally so. So, kudos to you guys for sure for sussing that out.
So, Chris, this question is very dear to me because I'm a soundtrack score lover. Doesn't matter if it's movies, games, or whatever. The music you've crafted for Pantheon is absolutely amazing. Be it Terminus, Polar Paths. Where do you draw, or where do you get your inspiration when it comes to music?
And please don't say Disney movies.
Well, it's Pixar movies actually. It's
that's much better.
No, that's a really good question, and I don't know that I'm going to have a super satisfying answer. Though I don't know what necessarily a satisfying answer would be, but I'll answer it like this. The first time that music like this moved me or grabbed me was with EverQuest, and it was the way that the music was married to my experience, and that just did something in me. I've always been a very imaginative person, and I would spend when I was first playing EverQuest, I remember, I was, like I said, I think I was like 12 or 13, but I went and made a sword out of a yardstick and just would listen to the music and fight in my basement. And, maybe I should have been doing that at 13 years old, but that's how the music would do something in me. I would actually get up from playing the game and live it, and that kind of stuck with me through games like World of Warcraft as well, and other games that have had just absolutely wonderful music. But I also a few years after that began to write music as a singer-songwriter, and would write a lot of songs and sing, and playing guitar, piano, some other stringed instruments, and that kind of became the main expression for quite a while. And one of the things that most of us know who listen to music like that, or music in general, that's done by an artist or a band or whatever it may be, that the melody is got to be good. The melody has to resonate, and that's what gets stuck in your head. And that, I think, would be one of the things I would point to say when I compose music. the melodies, not always memorable and by intention, but the times that they are, it's coming from, I think that's that singer-songwriter background of thinking through vocal melodies and then building up music around it. And that's typically how I will write music. It's how I wrote lyrical music, and it's how I write compositions. Is I'll start with a melody line, and I don't think that's abnormal or even that's probably how a lot of people do it. But that's what I'll do, and I'll then build up music around it. And I rarely have a good picture of where it's going ultimately when I start. I don't sit and can't read music very well, and I don't sit and write out the notes. It's really more of a feel as I go along, and the music kind of opens up a little bit as I go. So it's
that's what makes a good musician.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know,
trust
maybe.
me. I can't read music, but I play guitar, piano, and everything. It's what makes a good musician. I'll follow up with this one then. Is there any composers out there that also help inspire you? Because for me personally, don't take this the wrong way, I hear some Hans Zimmer when I hear your music. I hear a little bit of Hans Zimmer in there. Is that somebody that could help or helps inspire you? Absolutely, yeah. I love Hans Zimmer. I'll listen to Time, and I'll listen to pretty much the majority of the music he did for Interstellar. And those will be the kind of things when I listen to instrumental music, if I'm working on something, he's one of my go-tos for sure. Cool. Very nice. Brilliant. Can't wait to hear more. You need to work on that a bit. Get some more music out there. Thank you, man. Appreciate it very much.
Not that he's busy enough already.
Exactly. But he seems to, kind of have a reasonable balance. So, Justin, what does the arrival of a new race to Terminus look like? Surely they don't crash land on a spaceship. If their world of origin is another plane of existence, do they simply shift planes, end up standing on the Terminus equivalent of where they were standing on their plane?
Justin, do you want me to share? Do you want me to share the quote I found from a while ago? Do you remember the when I posted that in Skype, the thing you said in the studio all those years ago?
I would love it.
Do you think that would be an appropriate answer to this question?
I don't. If it isn't, you've
got to say it now.
No, I'll post it to him privately, and then I'll let him decide if he wants to share it. It's just funny. Okay. It's just funny. It's not. Go ahead and roll.
Yes. So this is another one. I mean, obviously, as we get into the meat, it's really hard to answer all of these in a direct way because I can't give away secrets. But
Dropper told us otherwise.
What's that?
Dropper told us otherwise.
Yeah, I'm sure he said.
You're supposed to say that when he's not here.
Right. So they don't crash land on a spaceship. That's for sure. Because the gnomes didn't crash, and what they have is not really a spaceship. What I'll say is I'll point to what we've got published that can give some examples, and the best one is probably with the Scar, where you have what's called the Dead Shear, which is I don't remember exactly how the keeper refers to it word for word, so I won't quote him. But it's a large, monolithic, haunting, kind of like chunk of a mountain that is planted into Scargull, what is now Scargull, and so there is a physical transfer that takes place. The means by which that happens, I'm not going to get into. All of where that comes from, I'm not going to get into, but there is a physical transfer, and it's not on a spaceship with, aliens saying, I'm fine with that if you share that. But yeah, no, there's not a spaceship. There's not a yeah. I would just say that. We look at that and we can draw some things from that, and it's an important part, obviously, of the story. If it was incidental and immaterial, then I probably would be a lot more free sharing some of those details. But because it has obvious ramifications, and it's a question I'm excited about the players asking in game and looking for answers for. So, yeah. Sorry, guys, to disappoint.
I'm sorry about that. I had to step away. I've had some weird noises going on. Doorbell was ringing, but in a very low frequency.
Froggy's hunting you. It's already happening.
I thought we had ghosts in the house or something.
Are you serious? That is like the starting of a horror movie. That's terrifying.
Honestly, it was.
That?
It was.
Did you watch that tape I sent you?
Goodness.
I was listening to you guys chatting, and I heard this weird bell sound going on the whole time. So I had to step up and have a look, and literally my bell was ringing. I obviously didn't go out in the hallway to check to see if somebody's there, but I've got to keep an eye on that. It's freaking me out. I have to go outside after this. So let me go and quickly find myself. There we go. I'll rewatch and listen to this answer afterwards. So, Chris, class and racial restrictions carve the nature of the metagame in previous games substantially. Unless driven by lore, Pantheon holds true to this as well. Could you explain the process you guys took to figure out which races should gain access to which classes?
Just a lot of red-faced screaming, really. I think we started full-throated, full volume, first word, and stayed that way until we all passed out. So, no, we went through a few iterations, and I think that honestly, and Justin might feel otherwise, but when it comes to the way lore has intersected design, with Justin and I being kind of the lead components there of those two arms, I think the race class restrictions were for me one of the more contentious moments, and not like not that we were like going at each other or anything, of course, but it just Justin was pushing really hard for certain things, and I was pushing really hard for certain things, and it's rare. And contention is good. I mean, that can be sharpening and can be, revelatory a lot of times. But it's just happened to be one of the, for me, in my remembrance, the more naturally contentious things. And so it, like everything, it starts with the lore, and from my remembrance, kind of let them take a stab at it without my input first, because I wanted to see where they would land. And then it was more a process of going through where they'd landed and just kind of working through some of the things that I felt like were hard for me to get to. I think like the idea of a dark mer bard was hard for me at first, because and the whole premise of the bard has kind of grown and changed. Even the most recent conversation Justin and I actually have had about it. It just kind of for city planning purposes was really I really have a very different sense of the bard class that I did back then, because back then it was like why in the world would you see a dark mer hopping around and singing songs in a tavern kind of thing, and Justin's response was very good, and I didn't necessarily quite agree with it at the time as far as like it being a decision we should go with, but now I think there are ways that it could work really well. So anyway, yes, the class and race restrictions, I'm just reading the answer here, or the question. The process was one of, yes, lore and design coming together and butting heads in a healthy, creative way to come up with the combinations that we have now. And and they're not set in stone. I think we've said that before. They're not set in stone in the sense that they're mostly set in stone, but there are a few that we're still kind of wanting to make sure we've made the right decision, not based on, please let this be this and that, because it's hard. It's hard to draw lines, but we've done it by the lore as best as possible. But then there's so many opportunities too with the way our game is set up to expand that and open up new possibilities in the future.
Nice. Very.
Can I add something to that, or do we need to move on?
Oh, definitely. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, everything Chris said is totally accurate, starting with the screaming, and then the contention and everything else. I think it was actually Corey's idea to do the Darkmer bard, and I thought then it was a great idea. And again, I don't have these expectations or trappings, and so this is one area where I was kind of a jolly warrior for. Yeah, I like contrast. I'm a huge fan of contrast, and I think we had, with that specifically, I saw a real opportunity for a narrative thread that would set clerics. Oh no, this is not even that we're talking about. Sorry, I'm on the cleric. Sorry,
whoa,
the cleric in the Darkmer that would set them apart racially, and so it's going to give them an identity that I think will be very fun and cool to explore. But for the bard as well, I had a little bit more of an open-ended. Maybe even open-headed thought there, and that's I'm a little bit more free to mess with tradition and convention. But Chris is absolutely right. We kind of gave him an initial thought, and he was very gracious with it, even when he disagreed. And it's not set in stone. We've said internally we're going to let people test and see, and we'll see if there's a gap somewhere or something is unnatural. I know the community's got, because I try to read a lot of the feedback on the forums and elsewhere, and the community's got good thoughts and good reasons why different things should be something they're not, some things shouldn't be what they are. But yeah, we'll see those gaps or those unnatural places and work on it.
So I'll come in and give you some support there, Justin, with the Bard and the Darkmere, as wide to it can fit. Where I see the Darkmere, they can be very influential. They can play with your mind. They look intriguing, mystical. They look like a race that can definitely twist you a bit. So it kind of would suit the Bard to musically inspire or influence NPCs. That's how I kind of would see it working. Yeah. So there.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
See,
and again,
I just like it when my food sings first.
So let's go and move on with the next one. And this is for you again, Justin. Don't know if you can answer any of these questions. How many dragons are left? Is there a dragon pantheon? Are dragons at all affected by the celestial barrier?
Okay. So I couldn't put a number on the number of dragons left. I'll just say this, and just in general, it's understandable given how little we've released lore-wise that people, the community has a feeling that Terminus is really young, or it's been so affected by these new additions that the older history is just completely dormant. And what we have on the website focuses so much on the Sacred Six and then all 9 races. It's easy to draw that conclusion. But there is a lot of history before this event and before the Deicide War and before the Ages of Collisions. And so there's a lot there that's taken place. And the dragons are a major part of that. And obviously we reference the Dragon Wars and everything there, but there's history before that. And so there's, I would say, a good number of dragons. There's the abdication, and they have gone to not their normal places of authority, but they're out there. And they're significant players in our world. Is there a dragon pantheon? Of sorts. That's all I'll say about that. Are the dragons at all affected by the celestial barrier or the celestial boundary? Yeah, and I think one of the ways you see that is that they have a lot of power. And there's other ways that they're affected, and I won't go into all that. But just again, looking at what we've released, I would say that it's enhanced their stature in the world, even though they've removed themselves from kind of dominating the landscape. Unless you kill a Rainborn like Ichiro did, you've got a lot more like free reign.
Very nice.
Yeah. So everybody knows that having a strong and stable economy in an MMO is a pretty important thing. Chris, are you able to discuss player-based shops or auction houses, or perhaps how players will be able to sell and trade to each other?
I agree, obviously, that strong and stable economy is better than a weak and unstable one. That's about all I can say. There's a lot more I could say, and I'm probably going to intentionally not say a whole lot here, because I think responsibly there's still a lot of things that we're working out, and while we have a lot of the framework in place, there are some decisions that just aren't appropriate for us to spend a lot of time thinking about right now.
Right. You probably don't want to give out information that's very highly subject to change.
Yep, that's right. But
Exactly.
but I will say, when it comes to just the philosophy, the tenet, obviously we put a very high premium on the social interaction and trying to promote as much of that as possible in every sphere of the game. And so we're working through finding some system ideas for the way players can trade, and making a tradesman, a tradeswoman, more of a real identity in Pantheon. And so that's probably all I'm going to say, but hopefully that's enough to let you guys know that it is something very important for us that we do that right, and try to find some ways to take some of the charm and the magic of DC tunnel type interactions, and just allow that kind of thing to happen more frequently, or at least more easily in terms of how the game helps players promote themselves as a tradesperson, and but not by eliminating that social interaction.
I will say this. Yeah. That answer tells me more than you want to reveal.
Good. Good.
Nice, very nice.
Well, it may sound like that is a very almost avoiding answer, but to be honest, it really isn't. I mean, because what that tells me is you're considering multiple facets, which is more than most games that will ever do.
Yep.
You're trying to weigh and consider the consequences of each in their own right, and seeing if you can find a balance between them all.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. Just to let the viewers out there know, I mean, it's very easy to take an answer out of context, where it may seem like it's avoiding, but a lot of times it isn't.
Well done.
Justin, I've got a 4-parter for you, so I'm going to take this in steps just so that we can try to keep your sanity intact.
I'm ready. I've got 4 bats. You guys didn't know I'm like General Grievous, and I'm just...
That's how you break floors so fast.
There you go.
That may have 4 arms, confirmed.
Yes.
Sweet wish. So, we're Krazus, I'm probably slaughtering these names again, and Razik, always rivals.
Yes.
Okay. Did Razik cause any trouble in or from the Tenebrous Tundra during his imprisonment?
Not directly.
Interesting. If the current year of the game is 987 IH, aren't we coming up on his release?
It's possible.
More questions. Has he directly influenced, or has he been influenced by the Zealots of Ra?
He has not been influenced by them. He has indirectly influenced them. Oh man. I'll just say there's a lot of indirect influence between the two. From events surrounding him and him that has it's had an effect on the world. I will say that the act of imprisoning Rozek has had an effect on the world.
So I've got to give a shout out to Monster Koala for bringing us these questions. Awesome dude. And Justin and Jopper, so far you guys have done brilliantly. You know, the worry that you can't answer too much or your answer's too little is perfect. Absolutely amazing. So, Jopper, here's a fun question for you, or Chris. Is it possible to swim from one continent to another? And how long would it take?
That's such a good question. I love where that question comes from. Just that way of thinking back to some of those older games. That is, my answer right now, knowing that this could change, is that theoretically, yes, you could. The way that our zones are set up, you should be able to do that. Now, whether you will get swallowed up by something or whether you will find the water, the deep water, if you will, the big water. When we go to the beach with my little children, I always love that moment where they first come over the hill and see the ocean, and I always talk to them about the big water in the moment where they see the big water for the first time. So when you're dealing with big water in Pantheon, I think it would be right that you would fear it. And and I don't mean in the sense that, and I've spoken about this before, and I feel really strongly about this, that we've seen some games in the last several years, and it's worked well for them, and it's been good implementation for the most part. But it's essentially been overland content underwater. Pantheon will be more like what we remember from the olden days, where the kind of game where rumors and myths like Megalodon and Lake Wraithir and things that people think they see in the deep and they're not sure, and there's going to be a lot of reason to fear our water. So whether someone would want to swim from continent to continent, that's a question in and of itself.
And another thing to take into a context as well is obviously that the environment could also play a part. Some deep waters are going to be very, very cold. Some of the water further out might be very, very hot. So that could also maybe play an impact.
Yeah, that's right. And we've talked about that on some of the streams too, about pressure and anaerobic are the two atmospheres or the two climates that come to mind with big water, with deep water. So it's when you see things down below that you want to try to get to, you're gonna need to weigh that, and you may not be able to. And that's where things like the Dark Myr, for example, might have a little bit of leg up. When we talk about racial passives, it may be that they have not just certain resistance bonuses or penalties as a racial passive, but some races like the dwarves, like the Dark Myr, I think you can expect to see some acclimation-oriented benefits and weaknesses as well.
So you had to mention that there's going to be big baddies in deep water, because
it scares me too.
It's one of the only things that actually just terrifies me in real life.
Release the Kraken!
If I can't see the bottom, I don't go in it, because my heart just starts racing. So now I'm not going to get wet in the game either.
That also makes
I'm very similar, but in a video game, like in a game like this, it's the only time I can, because in real life, I wouldn't ever do it. But normally, it still freaks me out too.
That just leaves me.
I agree normally, but now that you're talking about big baddies, I'm like,
That just leaves me.
Ask Justin how big.
I don't want to ask him how big it is.
That just makes me want to go and think about boat travel, maybe. That's where my mind just went now. I'm on a boat, I'm traveling from one continent to the other, and this big, massive beast comes up and attacks a boat. Oh my god, that would be so awesome. So Justin, tell us, how big are these beasts?
I mean, certain ones are pretty big. I like to call them big bad baddies. And,
Big bad baddies.
that's the official lore name. That's right from our bestiary. Big bad baddies. So
Love it.
Awesome.
that's it. No, I remember. Chris hit on it, but just one of the very first conversations we had about water when I was brought on was Chris relaying just that fear, that primal fear when he's swimming around in EQ, which I've done enough stream watching and tinkering and watching him even play it since I came onto the project to know, like, the water in EQ just by nature was terrifying. I mean, it was cloudy, it was murky, it just, especially if it's raining or dark, man, it felt terrifying just to watch him run around or swim around down there. So I think we'll want to always keep people on their toes and let your mind do most of the work, but definitely just supply some scary things down in there.
Awesome. So, Justin, after the strengthening of the celestial barrier, is dissension still possible?
Well, Koala's really giving these softballs. I mean, these are just ho-hum, easy breezy. That's a huge question. That is a huge question. And shout out to him, too, for you mentioned him earlier, but he does, I've been able to watch some of his lore videos, and he does a really good job taking my mumbo-jumbo and making it into legible, understandable form. So if you guys haven't checked out his videos, go ahead and check them out because they're really good. I am not going to punt on this. I will say yes. It is possible. But there's just so much that goes into it. And again, as you look at the lore and look what we've published, there should be some trends. There should be some mechanisms that you observe that will let you know it's not an easy thing. It's not a snap your fingers thing. So I will say yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So, Chris, Joppa, old buddy of mine, as the creative director of Visionary Realms, can you tell us more about what you're kind of up to with Pantheon? I mean, you've got to have some kind of small secret you're just dying to let out.
Let's see.
I'll even go as far as to say, please.
Pretty please with a cherry on top.
So you got what you're after in this question is some kind of new tidbit of information. That's what you're after. That's
what everybody's after at all times.
That's what yeah. I mean, the ho-hum stuff is I think I mentioned earlier. I'm about to finish the third class reveal, and that will be in the next newsletter. So that's been a really big part of what I'm working on. Classes are they're very important. They're very important, and so that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of my time. It takes a lot of energy, and I don't think there's any point. And I say this honestly, I don't think there's been any point in development that I've felt as drained in a good way, in mostly a good way, and physically spent than when I've been working on class stuff. And it's just because it requires so much thought, because it's not only designing these classes to be in and of themselves a complete and really fun and engaging and resonating experience, but then it's also taking into account, the last 20 years of MMO gaming, and how many different ways can a ranger be a ranger, and how many different ways can a warrior be a warrior, and a cleric, and it's like finding that sweet spot where the Pantheon class in question is familiar, but has its own, just really feels unique too, in a way that can stand up in the overabundance of MMOs. And so I'm really hopeful that the positive feedback and the resonating that we saw with the first class reveals. I mean, it's one of those, anytime you do something and you put it out there. I mean, that's what game development's all about. You're constantly doing things and putting it out there, and people are, thinking about it and telling you what they think. And the first round was great, and I am more excited about this round than that one. And I think I'll feel that way every time because they're just what I've been working on. But so that's been a big one, and there's a lot I wish I could say, but other than that, I think so. I would say Justin mentioned it earlier, and that's we're working on Fairtale, and if you've been following our development, you know that we have been pretty public facing for just about the entirety of our development process, and it's been really good in a lot of ways, but it's been also really challenging in some ways, because what happens behind the scenes when MMOs are developed is things change a lot. Things change a lot, and you're going to get different tech that comes into play. You're going to get different people coming in to work on the game. You're going to realize that the way that you've done something in the past is not the best way to do it, and so you have to go in and change things, or there's just so many, and you have to manage that, and you can't just constantly be churning. But Fairtale is what we're calling our reference zone, and what that means is, if you don't know what that means, it's a zone that from the very beginning to the very end, we're building in a way that is how all of our zones need to be and are meant to be built. And a lot of the zones that we've been showing and a lot of the zones we've been developing have been zones that have been around for quite a while, because when we first started this venture, there was a lot of things that honestly we just didn't know. We didn't really know. And I'm referring to things like optimization, object batching, the kind of atlasing that you can do and need to do with your textures and different things to make things look pretty and run well, which is something we're committed and need to do. But it's not just zone building, it's also game design. And Fairtale is going to be the first zone when it's finished that from top to bottom, from the world building pipeline to the art pipeline to the game design pipeline and implementation, everything from atmospheres, climates, perception, all the way to climbable objects, interactable objects, will be from top to bottom a zone that is complete. Where when we do something like a PAX, we will finally be able to not have anything to say regarding it will be like this eventually, but it will actually be the first time that someone would sit down and play Pantheon and experience the entire the entirety of what makes us us. And I'm really excited about that. It's a really big deal. It's a huge milestone for us internally, because we've yet to have a zone that has every single game system in it and functioning meaningfully, like launch quality, not just here's a demo or here's an example, but this is how it will be. And that's really exciting.
Very nice.
Now I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for that. So let's go for another good lore one. Justin, what or who ultimately corrupted Itero? And was this done before or during the trip to Terminus?
Well, Chris gave you some juicy goodies. I can give absolutely nothing on this because it is such a big deal, and it just can't be commented on. Yeah, it just can't be. I just can't. It's such a good. If I was reading the lore, it's a natural question, but I can't say anything.
That's fair. Fair enough, man. Fair enough.
I've got this sneaking suspicion that Yarn gives me all of the hard questions because I can look like the bad guy.
No, this is a great question.
Actually, no, even that answer is now making people that are interested in the lore go absolutely bonkers, because why can't you talk so much on this? What does that mean? Where does this go? Where does this lead to? The speculation alone is going to happen.
The fact that nothing can be said
Says it
Kinda
all.
sets off bells in your head. It's like,
Yep.
this is super important. I need to be paying more attention to this.
Exactly.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Good answer. So, Chris, you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it. The same goes for Justin. Somebody released this image of the Cleroid, and apparently that's going to be one of the first new classes released for Pantheon. Is there any truth to that?
Okay, so I have to say, when
You
I
have,
first,
you have my permission to tell him to just go away.
well, I wouldn't have anything much to say, but the funny thing about this is when I first saw this image, I don't remember where I first saw it, but it wasn't anyone talking about it. It was just the image, and I saw Claruid, or I was thinking like, how do you put Claruid? What is this? But when I was coming back from PAX, I was just really excited to hear what the different communities were talking about, and you guys I think had some kind of a show around that time talking about some things, and this was part of it. And the way, Yarn, that you pronounce it Claroid made me bust out laughing in the airport because, and I think Lex said something like that sounds like some kind of a medicine or some kind of like an issue.
It sounds like hemorrhoids.
I laughed really hard because I just would never have imagined someone would pronounce it Claroid, and I don't know if that's the the accent and whatnot, but that's my only real comment to make here is I remember laughing really hard when I heard you announce it, and you just did it again, which is awesome.
Awesome.
The Claroid is not planned for Pantheon's release, unfortunately. I know it's
Everybody out there, I'm sorry. We tried.
yeah.
Did you say there was an image of this?
Haven't you seen it? I'll get it to you.
No.
I'll
Get it to me. I want to see the Claroid.
Actually, let me go and I'll get it to you after we're done.
All right.
So
I'm excited about that.
this is a very important question, Justin,
Yes.
to Monster Koala himself. That's why it's all in big black bold letters.
And
I'm gonna-
italicized.
And I'm going to try my best to pronounce this name. Why is Hathus Krevgel, the dead Hyress, considered dead if she's simply so rarely seen? Is it undead wordplay?
First of all, great job on the pronunciation. Hathus Krevgale is the way that you pronounce it. So you nailed that right out of the gate. I mean, that is the most convoluted name I think we have.
What's
and
that J doing in there?
It's like a Nordic J. So it just kind of hangs out there like a fjord.
Nice.
It's there to wave at you, taunt you.
Yeah. It's to make you go, Krevgale? Which one gets the...
Got it.
You know how I like to
Yeah.
as many things as possible.
Yep.
So here's another example of something that contextually people only have access to what's been published. That title, the Dead Heiress, much like Osari, He Who Rages, refers to their relationship inside their own pantheon. So it is not a reference to her state right now. It's a reference to her backstory within the Archive pantheon, because she had a place of prominence there at one point in time, and she lost it. And she was, I would say, definitely on the good to neutral side of the pantheon, and shifted away from that. And in that process, lost her place, and lost, obviously, just a place of succession. That would be where the title Heiress comes from. And then the dead side of it is not that she actually died, even in that state, obviously in her mortal or divine state, but it's a reference to the way that she was punished or disciplined for how she acted. And so there's some complexity there to that, but that's where that title comes from. And the keeper doesn't, at that point in time, he's speaking in titles just like he would a human pantheon, but he doesn't really unpack any of that there. So I'll just say that's a reference to her backstory, and why she is who she is.
Nice.
Yeah.
So here's another lore question.
Please, given unto me your lore.
Bring it on! So on the human pantheon, why did Osari dislike the humans so much? I mean, he threw every bit of their only city into the ocean. Also, is the Red Raven a human god?
Great questions. So, Haethys Crevgale is a complex creature. She's got levels to her, as the kids say.
Layers like an onion.
Yes. Osari is a little bit just more. He is just a being that exists and was conceived in rage and anger, and so he saw more of the opportunity to act in that. And so, if you look at him and you consider somebody angry, somebody furious, who is gated or locked off in their rage, normally, at least in this sense, it doesn't dissipate. And so he sensed an opportunity through dissension to be able to act in his anger and to be able to become, even in forsaking his immortal power and immortal rights, his divine rights, he sensed an opportunity to be able to be much more of a player in the world and to live out some of that and act out some of his anger and rage. So the why is kind of, I think, a little bit answered in, again, what we've already published, which is just that's who he is, and he saw the opportunity. And he wasn't good. I mean, it's not like he was a good guy and then he descended and suddenly turned against the humans. His influence on humanity when it comes to the Throne Bastion and Havensong humans, the Vas Demeth humans, his interaction was bad with them. He's not a corruptor, but he definitely is a seducer almost in anger and rage. And so,
nice.
Yeah.
So,
and then the Red Raven. Sorry, real quick. The Red Raven is not a human god. Red Raven is a group. It's a faction.
Ah, okay. I didn't see that one. I missed that one. The final lore question, Justin. Then you'll put out your misery.
He won't, because I've got questions.
Well, I'm sorry, but we've run out of time for that. So, in the eyewitness account of Marthos Bozamir, he describes a howling from the end of the battlefield where no one was looking. Being heard as an emissary descended from the clouds. What was that? Could it have been the power of unknown origin?
This is such another juicy good one, and I cannot answer it. So, it's a significant question to ask. It's a beautiful question to ask. But I cannot answer that question. I'll say this. I'll say it's not the power of unknown origin. It has nothing to do with that.
Cool.
It's one of my favorite moments, for what it's worth. But I get to know.
Tease.
Thanks for that. So, the whole show boils down to just one question. Everything else is just foreplay.
Yeah, basics.
This is the only one that really matters. Who is the VOT host with the most?
For me, it's the Claroid.
I'll give you a cushion for that.
I think it's the Claroid. I think you're all great, and I would just reiterate what Justin said earlier, which is you guys have been supporting us, and not just supporting us, but really just fostering and cultivating this community of passion and interest. And I can't choose any one of you, because you all have been part of making this happen, and you've done it so faithfully for so long, that it really means a lot to us, and it's a big deal. I mean, it's I don't know that you guys hear these kind of things enough, but knowing that you're out here doing this because of your passion for the project and your desire to see a great game like this, it has a huge effect on us morale-wise. It's there to strengthen our own passion.
I'm going to break out in tears in a minute.
Yeah, well, don't cry. Just remember the Claroid, but I think it's
Big bad baddies.
Yeah.
I just think it's important that you guys know how much it means to us, and it's not at all to be taken for granted what you guys have done and how much time you've invested and how meaningful it is. So thank you to all of you.
You're welcome, and it goes both ways. The work you guys are doing, the passion, the love, the detail, the time you're putting in, it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention the community.
Yep.
We wouldn't be here if there wasn't a community to keep us going.
Exactly. So everybody, thank you very much for the support. Do you guys have time for some questions, or are we pushing it?
Do I not get to answer?
Oh yes, sorry,
As
Justin.
long as it's me, we're fine.
Jopper's, he just put me off there.
Yarn's all flustered now. We're not used to actually getting any kind of praise. Usually we're dealing with hate mail.
Well, I'll remove the fluster by saying it's Joshua.
I'll remove the fluster. Y'all suck.
Yeah, no, I think Josh, because he's not here. So there you go.
There you go.
No, I just agreeing exactly with what Chris said because it's the truth. You guys help us a lot, not just by engaging the community in ways that we can't, because you're able to be either more consistent or to dream and to think about things that we can't talk about. If we talk hypotheticals, it becomes somebody's expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are able to exist in that space, and it's really important. It's the same thing with lore and fan theories or fan fiction or any of that. Like that's a really important space to occupy that keeps people's imaginations engaged. That I can't sit in, we can't sit in, and so the role you guys have is truly fundamental to the biome or the ecology of our community. And you represent individually so much of what we want in our game, which is people who love the world, who have a sober-mindedness about it. We don't need a bunch of fanboys and fangirls. We need people who are able to give feedback and are able to speak about what they see. And then you guys also, I think, personify the attitude when it comes to warmth and welcoming, when it comes to bringing people who have no idea what Pantheon is, no idea what an MMO is. You guys do that really well. Your shows are just warm and full of an inviting attitude, and I think that's what we want in our community, and it's what's needed in our community is that type of approach. So yeah, it's hard to say favorites. I was able to pick somebody who wasn't here, so that was the way out. But you guys are so.
It's okay. I think I'm still leading in the polls, so we're good.
Yeah, they are so busted, those polls.
No, they're not. I think they're right on target.
So
I'll ask. People just haven't been voting.
I'll ask again. Do you guys still have time for some questions? Chat?
Yeah.
I think so. Maybe about 15 minutes. That I think would be my cap. But yeah, let's do it.
All right then. So Shy.
Alrighty then.
We pass
if
the
you guys
scepter
are
over to
ready,
you.
Here we go. All right. First off, this one is for Joppa. From Resum, he'd like to know, what is your favorite instrument, mythical instrument?
Mythical instrument?
Yeah, I guess he's asking either your favorite actual instrument or game instrument or mythical instrument.
I would say real instrument would have to be the guitar, and mythical instrument.
Whip or whistle?
Mythical instrument would have to be. Oh my goodness, that's such a crazy question. It's not a crazy question. My mind's flying all over the place. I will say in the music that I've composed, one of my favorite instruments is the duduk or the duduk. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's a Middle Eastern instrument. And then the erhu or the erho, I can't remember what it's called, but it's an Asian violin type instrument, and it's one of the prominent instruments you can hear in the Fall of the Great King track, there is one of those in there. So I would say that one probably, those two would probably be my favorites.
No,
And I'm going to say
Zen
Zenji's flute from Dynasty Warriors.
Cool.
There you go.
Well, the next one is a very, very important question. Solitude would like to know if there will be pickles in Pantheon.
This is very important. It's close to my heart.
It is very
Yeah, it's very
important
dear to
because
all of
you know,
us.
the whole EQ thing with Boomba and his pickles. Will
I was
there
going
be
to say, if
pickles in
Boomba the
Pantheon?
Big if Boomba the Big is anywhere near any place, then yes. If not, then Boomba will have had to pass his pickle making arts on to someone else, and we'll have to wait and see.
There you go, Solitude. I told you I'd ask. You have your pickle answer.
Maybe some years down the road you'll find a solitary pickle maker NPC.
Would be fun. And then Rambo Part 6 would like to know. He's basically trying to understand something you guys had written in the comics about the keeping the group together and helping the group reform. And what exactly did you mean by keeping it together?
Where was this written or said?
I believe he got it from the web page. Probably the biggest challenge, and certainly what will be the most controversial. How we can have a hardcore, challenging game.
So keeping the group together, meaning like, is he talking about friends who start in different parts of the world?
Exactly.
It almost sounds like to me like, how would you keep a group together in a challenging environment?
Session and beyond that, days later, helping the group reform.
Yeah.
I got the feeling he was asking more along the lines of the thing from Vanguard.
It's basically from one of Brad's blog posts. Is what chat's saying.
Okay.
That helps.
I mean, like the campfires where you
With that one,
together.
I think I'm going to step in here and say we might just have to wait and ask Brad someday on that one.
Someone linked it. Why don't we go to a different question? Let me just kind of see if I can get some context for this, and then we'll see if I can say anything.
Do you have any insight into the next gameplay stream?
No. Soon.
That's a good answer. And again, Resum would like to know to Justin, how do you punish office staff that's behaving naughty?
Say good morning, Terminus.
Make her come on the VOT show. That'll learn them.
Yeah, you guys are great. I gotta do all these ideas. These are awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think just waiting on me to speak is a good way to punish someone, and then actually following through and speaking is another way to punish someone. So I make them listen to my ideas, and that's the primary way that I would punish somebody. So.
Insmet would like to know if VR will be at Gamescom this year, because it hasn't been there for a while.
I don't know the answer to that yet. I know that Ben D is in the process of taking a look at all the upcoming shows and trying to find the ones that make the most sense for us.
Okay, so the next question is along those same lines, asking if VR will be at PAX West.
We will not be at PAX West because there is a 3-year waiting list, and we are on the list. And if by chance enough people cancel or things open up, then we definitely want to be there, and we'll be there as soon as we can.
Sweet, because the next time you guys have it at PAX West, I'm so there. Bring
Awesome.
it to Seattle. Bring it to Seattle.
Nice.
So,
Now they're not going to go because...
I know. Now he's going to sit there and go, no, I don't want to go because God wants us to go. From Resum, he'd like to ask Justin if any of the ancient characters we hear about in lore will actually make it into Pantheon. I'm assuming as characters you run into.
NPC, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. There's not a lot of stuff that I'd like to... Well, yeah, some, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and Coach would like to know if, would you stop? Coach would like to know if there's plans to showcase underwater areas, dungeons, or otherwise before Alpha.
Man, that would be awesome. The before Alpha qualifier is one that makes me hesitate because I don't want to say yes if I don't know for sure, and I don't know for sure. But we are definitely working on areas of the game that, depending on whether or not they're ready by Alpha, would have that underwater presence in them or incorporated in them to some extent. So it is definitely a possibility, but I can't say for sure.
Alrighty, and Resum would like to know if what your favorite classes are at the team that you've created, and how does it differ from what we're accustomed to playing currently?
Oh man, I mean the generic answer is in every class I try to design them in a way where I genuinely want to play them. If I don't come away from a class design stint, whatever you would call it, not wanting to play that class, then I'm not done. So there are some people that have teams that design classes, and there are some people like us who I mean, I definitely have input for sure. It's not, I don't go and shut myself in a room and, don't listen to anyone and come out with a glowing document. I definitely am sharing it and getting feedback. But for me, that guiding principle is I have to want to play this class, even if it's a class I've never played before, because if I can't get there, if I can't see and listen, and a lot of it too has to do with going and just hearing what people say. I spend a lot of time on the forums reading, and some people say, well, that's dangerous because you can't say yes to what everybody wants, but it's incredibly helpful to hear people, especially our audience, who have been waiting and playing so many games, and the kind of things that bubble up to the surface about what they're longing to see. I mean, the Ranger was a perfect example where when I said what I said at PAX, there were some pretty strong reactions to that because people, thought that it was going in a certain direction. And I really was helped by reading a lot of the feedback, and it didn't really change the direction of the class so much, but what it did was it reinforced the direction that the class was headed in. And I think for me, the class, my favorite class is I typically play healers. My main from EverQuest was a human cleric. And my main from World of Warcraft was a holy paladin. So I love healers. I resonate with them and tend to move towards them. But I am excited to play literally every single class that we're going to have. And that's, I guess that's that's all I've got on that.
We have somebody, John Crichtons, who'd like to know, when are we actually going to see the game played on stream by regular people and not just pre-alpha people?
I am so excited about our streamer program. I think it's really the next step for us. People need to see like actual players playing the game. Whether or not it's pre-alpha people, I was expecting that question to be, when are we going to see players actually playing instead of devs? And I don't think we can get to that point soon enough, because when people play the game, not the devs aren't people, when players play the game,
they're not people like us.
I don't consider
if this were a real group, then
exactly, brilliant comment.
If devs were real people, then this would look a lot different. But when real players are playing the game, like we saw at PAX, it's just a different world. And the game comes across so much more genuinely and authentically, and so I'm super excited about that. They can't get it up and running soon enough. As
kind of a somewhat related suggestion, couldn't you technically do, say, because you have been using streamers, which is, smart move, have them form their own group with maybe spot for one dev, but then have a couple devs floating around in non-aggro mode to kind of like just chaperone a little bit, not necessarily interfere, but just make sure things are going the right way.
That might be already in the works.
Okay, then.
Good idea.
Okay. Rash would like to know if skill chains or magic bursts are confirmed like in Final Fantasy XI.
Not like in Final Fantasy XI, and I want to be careful here because I strongly dislike just about every form of skill chain and its systems like that. But having said that, there is something that I'm not going to say what it is yet.
He tries so he does so well. He does so
You can
well.
hear him biting.
Yeah.
You can hear him biting his tongue, going, "Oh, I can't say it."
I want to really badly because it's. I'll say this: pay attention to the class reveals and pay attention to the ability descriptions, and you will be able to, I think, intuit kind of where this is going. And that's all I'm going to say.
Alrighty. Punklit would like to know if there's going to be hell levels, double experience loss levels, etc., things like that.
I don't know. I don't know for certain. We all know the story of hell levels, I think, and how it was a mistake and whatever. But they became this iconic part of the experience, and it became a rite of passage to, And what's so funny to me is how people don't remember what the hell levels were. Almost every time, like I hear people talking about hell levels, they'll reference what levels the hell levels were at, and they're not correct. It's this really funny thing, and that might be a good question to ask before we end the show: is what do you guys remember what the hell levels actually were? And I'd love to hear the answers. But the hell levels were one of those really weird things that weren't intentional, and yet it became such almost an endearing part of the game. And not everyone would agree with that, and I certainly didn't when I was in one. But they, Crixus got it right. Well, 51 to 60 were all hell levels, but then they had even more intense ones in the midst of that. And level 54 and 59 is correct. But 30, 35, 40, 45, that's right. So the answer is I don't know, but I like the premise. I like the idea that you hit a point where you really have to muscle through. It doesn't always have to be leveling. There's other ways we can do that. But leveling is certainly one of the key ones we would look at. And but there would have to be I would like for there to be a good reason. I would like for there to be something on the other side, unlike EQ, where it's just like, oh, okay, I did it. But it's like there's something on the other side that is, a carrot. I think carrots are important. Not that, they're important when they're appropriate, and to extents that are appropriate. And I think that's an option if we did something like that.
All right. And this is more towards Justin, I think. Will the lore of the game, and this is from Arthan, be fully available from within the game, or will we need to seek it from external sources like websites, etc.?
Well, excuse me. It won't be in the same format, so if we've got something that's more prose and long-winded, then that just lends itself to being outside the game. So it kind of depends on how you want to access the lore and what you want to access. And then obviously, if we do expand into books, other alternative mediums, then that's going to go more in depth and be more specialized and focus on one or two things than in the game. So I would say that, well, first, what do you need to do? You don't need to do anything. We know you can play the game and not pay attention to anything. But if you wanted to be well-versed on it, there will definitely be material outside of the game. But then you should be able to learn the world really, really well. And I would love to have things in the game, and we're planning on doing this, that aren't documented outside of it. So, if you spent time on Middle-earth, you would learn things about Middle-earth that you wouldn't learn in Lord of the Rings. So there's two sides of it. And I think that, perception storylines, they'll probably function more and look more like the 3 Fellowship books or The Hobbit, which are small stories in a big world. They focus on a certain group of people that do a certain thing. That's more like a storyline. But then like the Silmarillion, which is one of my favorite books of all time, that's much more of a broader overview and deals with events. And that might be something that we do externally outside of the game. It's more of an overview. So a lot of that's to be determined, but that would be my first thought on that.
Cool. So we'll take one question for Joppa and one for Justin, and then we'll give these guys their well-deserved leave.
Okay, tell you what. How about if I give you 3, because the last question is from Convo.
Okay.
I suppose Convo gets a pass.
Let's see.
He's our number 1 fan, don't you know?
Crixus wants to know if the lore of the game will be more of a backdrop or a driving factor in the quests and gameplay.
It will be a backdrop. We want it to be as static and uninteractable as possible. So
far away,
kind of like a painting. Yeah.
When you're like across the town and the painting is in a building on the other side of town, that's kind of how far away we want the lore to be.
It's the unrendered blob on the other side of the zone line. That's what I want the lore to be, so that you can see it from a distance.
Mountain.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's going to be backdrop and it's going to be driving force. It will be both. So.
Okay, the second to last question, guys. You're almost free. From Exmoco, would maybe an ice bridge form in certain times of the year, or an earthen bridge to open up small zones for short whiles?
Yes.
Will an earthen bridge form
frozen bridge?
Like an earthen bridge or an ice bridge, or just like a rainbow bridge, just something that just show up at certain times of the year, or just
a sandstorm
once in a great while, just to open up a smaller zone that just is never there all the time.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, well, here's a little tidbit. Here's a tidbit. The way we're designing our zones is the play area, the gameplay area that you guys as players will have access to, will typically not be the whole gameplay area. And sometimes you will be able to tell where there's more, and sometimes you won't. But those areas will be built in the development process of the zone, but not accessible. And that is for a myriad of reasons. And the variety of the reasons come from how we want to open them up to players. Sometimes it may be an event. Sometimes it may be a group-wide activity that we were talking about one just the other day in Fairthale that I think is just really cool. And sometimes it might be a time of year. Sometimes it might be an expansion. But we want to have ways of opening up areas and zones that aren't only like through expansions. We want there to be, we want that to be more frequent, and players to carry somewhat of a sense of mild anticipation all the time.
Cool. Very exciting.
And the final question, and I've still got a bunch left, so this is the last one. Convo VR would like to say this one is for Justin. How does the world end?
Oh, man. Well, if anybody's been reading the lore, they know that Terminus is basically a giant meatball. And at the end, the power of unknown origin comes and eats the meatball, and that's it. And when we sunset the game, It's just going to be basically you'll see this enormous mouth coming, and they'll have a big, huge, like black hole-sized Parmesan cheese shaker, and they're just going to sprinkle this snow dust from other planets on top of the meatball, and then they're going to eat it. And,
That's deep, man.
But what if you're vegan?
You're making me hungry.
Oh, I didn't say what the meatball was made of. I mean, it could be.
Well, what if you're carnivore?
Enemies.
Awesome.
Oh, it's just got a lot of parts in there.
So there you go, Convo. I told you I'd ask him.
No,
I
that's-
did it.
So, as Shai mentioned, there are obviously a few more questions there, but maybe next time we'll have these guys on again. Maybe at some point we'll get those questions answered for you. Again, Jopper, Justin, or Chris and Justin, thanks for joining us and sitting down and going through this with us, and it was amazing having you on. Dealing with us, exactly. It was amazing having you on. We hope you in chat enjoyed yourselves.
Well, thank you to Convo as well, because he's been in chat pretty much the whole time.
Yeah. It was.
Convo's so funny.
It's so good to see him get some attention.
Yeah,
He's so good.
Yeah, it's funny though.
Who's
You
a good boy?
Yeah, exactly. So next Friday we'll be sitting down with Nekrios from our VOT show. He helps us out in the back end. We'll be sitting down with doing a player Q&A with him next week. So that's what you can look forward to next Friday on the regular time, 6 p.m, not 7. And then again, everybody in chat, thanks for hanging out with us. We hope these guys satisfied your lust. I'm very excited from what I've heard. Even questions that went to some point unanswered gave enough to get the brain bowling. And it was brilliant having you on. And again, keep up the great work, guys. Take your time, and we'll be there to support you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks
Thanks,
to VOT, and thanks for everyone in chat. It was really fun. Really enjoyed it.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Be safe, everybody.
Adios.